You'll be shocked to find out how I worked out 1 week prior to all my competitions. Stay tuned. I created Species Nutrition with one mission in mind: to provide bodybuilders and serious athletes with no-nonsense supplements that work. I put my name and reputation on every bottle of Species Nutrition products. If you want to be your absolute best, join the evolution.
RX Television, RxMuscle.com. This is Ask Dave, your 30-minute question and answer show, weekly question and answer show with Dave Palumbo. Whatever is on your mind, be it bodybuilding, non-bodybuilding, diet, training, supplementation, this forum is all yours. We're going to be taking questions from the Dave Palumbo Experience app, from our YouTube community page, from our various social media outlets. We have a ton of questions to get to, so we're going to jump right into the questions. Right now on the channel, by the way, all new episode of the After Hours podcast yesterday, and then, of course, Sunday night's Heavy Muscle Radio. Dave and Chris Aceto breaking down this past weekend's FIBO championships in Germany, featuring an open class. We saw Andrew Jacked winning a narrow decision over Sasan Heirati. So if you haven't watched those, they're on the channel right now on the live tab, Heavy Muscle Radio and the After Hours podcast. First two questions on this show from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. Does eating 6 times a day really increase metabolism, or is that an old school myth?
I'll give you some good data. Think about Thanksgiving dinner. Everyone has Thanksgiving here, at least in the United States. Or maybe if you're in another country, think of your big celebration days. When you gorge on all that food, what happens after that? Sweat. Everyone's sweating, right? Everyone's profusely sweating because your metabolism has amped itself up because it sees all this extra food coming in and it says, we got to burn this stuff up. This is not good. So the act of eating, putting food into your body, turns your metabolism on. I'll give you a good analogy for the reptile industry. So snakes, you can feed them once every 2 months and they won't die. But what happens is in between the meals, so if you feed them less frequently, their actual metabolism slows down to very, very low levels, and their organs actually atrophy. The organs of digestion get smaller because they're not being used. So that the organism, the snake, whatever the reptile is, can conserve energy, and it can exist. I've seen snakes go on hunger strikes for a year and then start eating again, and they're fine, and they don't even lose any weight. But if you feed them frequently, it turns on their digestive machinery, and it amps their metabolism, and they grow, but not that much faster than when they don't eat. Okay, so the act of eating, okay, stimulates metabolic rate. And so if you, instead of eating all your meals, I know people fast. This new thing is intermittent fasting. They'll fast for 18 hours a day and they'll eat in a 6-hour window. Might be good for longevity, not good for bodybuilding, and certainly not good for weight loss. You might lose some weight initially because you're not eating as much, but your metabolism goes to zero when you're not eating because your body's conserving fuel. When you eat, you stimulate metabolic rate. When I used to eat 8, 12 times a day at my max, when I was off season, I used to have to carry a fan around with me. Matter of fact, Greg Kovacs, may he rest in peace, him and his wife bought me a fan because he had a little fan, battery operated fan. He used to carry it with me everywhere I went to restaurants and stuff like that because I was always sweating. So eating stimulates metabolism. Now, if you're eating junk food all day long, you could the metabolic amplification is overshadowed by the junk that you're eating, and so you won't lose weight. You won't get lean doing that. But if you're eating clean foods and you're doing that, you're going to see your metabolism go up, and it's going to make it much easier to lose weight. That's why the best diet, bodybuilders have known this for 35, 40 years, maybe longer. Small, frequent meals throughout the day. Sid?
Yeah, no, I was like, am I not muted again or whatever? So, all right, just wanted to make sure you can hear me. So the question that you kind of teased the episode with was about how you train. Now, this was born out of a question regarding the 1995 NPC Junior Nationals. What was your training like before that show? And then I guess if you want to extrapolate that over the course of your career and maybe how you changed things as your career evolved, training before a contest.
Yeah, never changed. I'm still training the same way, actually. But that year between the Junior USA in 1994 and the Junior Nationals in 1995, so that was maybe about a 16 or 18 month, period. I put on 30 pounds of muscle. I know it sounds unreal, but it happened. It was 224 or something like 228 at the Junior Nationals in 1994, where I placed third in heavyweights. Derek Whitsett beat me. He won that event. He went on to get a pro card, and at light heavyweight, he dropped down later that year, the year that Paul DeMeo won the Nationals. But I was in the midst of my growth spurt, and I competed at 258 pounds a year and a couple months later at the Junior Nationals. So I gained 30 pounds of muscle. I was just as lean. It was an insane thing. But what I noticed and what I did and what I continue to do to this day as much as I can is I always trained heavy. So at a week out, I was squatting 550 pounds for reps. I was benching 405 on the incline for reps. I was deadlifting still. I didn't change a thing. You know why? Because if you lighten weights up and you stop doing the exercises that got you to the point where you have all that density and girth, you lose the muscle or your body changes. That's why I think physiques like Nick Walker don't do well when they start trying to do more reps and higher reps. I know he tried a few different things to try to bring his waist down. Doesn't work, because what happens is he loses the freak factor that makes him so dominant on stage. When you have a big physique and a lot of density to your physique, you can't stop that. That's why Dorian couldn't stop training heavy.Ronnie couldn't stop. Once you have that physique, to maintain it, you got to lift heavy. Now, that doesn't mean that you got to hurt yourself in the gym. It means that at a week out, if you normally do 600-pound squats, if you can do 550, you do 5. You do whatever feels heavy, but you don't go down to 200-pound squats just because you think you should be doing higher reps, because that's not going to help you. Now, the week out, it doesn't really matter, but I'm talking about in all the weeks leading up to the show. These are good questions, and these questions come from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. It's an app that you can download on your Android phone or on your iPhone, the App Store. It's $29 a month. You get me as your coach in your back pocket. You get access to all my writings, all my videos I've ever done, all my protocols, off-season, pre-contest diets, keto diet, my carb rotation diet, all the cycles that I recommend, off-season, pre-contest for beginners and advanced, women, men. It's a great, great resource. I put up a workout every week. We do a Q&A video exclusively for the app members every single week. And that's an extra, in addition to what we're doing here, Ask Dave. This is only for the app members. And I answer everyone's questions in an open forum there. So you get to see everyone's questions and answers. Great learning experience. We've been doing it for a bunch of years. We have a lot of members and a lot of support. Thank you for supporting it. The fact that you guys support that and subscribe to that makes me work harder to keep updating that with the newest and greatest information because I'm always learning as well, and I'm always putting it on the app. So thank you for that. And also, I want to just thank everyone. A lot of people don't realize, if you go to my DavePalumbo.com website, a lot of people have been asking about the secrets to becoming a diet guru, my coaching course, which is 8 hours. I haven't held one in a while, but I have the recorded ones. So you can go watch the last course. It's actually better than watching it live with me, because not only do you get to see it, but you can watch it as many times as you want. And it's 8 hours of me teaching about diet, supplementation, performance enhancing drugs, how to write cycles, how to write diets for people. If you're a coach out there and you haven't taken this course, shame on you. It's deductible. You guys pay a ton of taxes on all the money you're bringing in for coaching. It's continuing education. I'm telling you, take the course. You will thank me. I promise you will contact me and say, Dave, I thought I knew a lot, but this course solidified these concepts in my mind and made me a better coach. And so thanks for all the support.
Before we go to the questions, our friends at Titan Medical Center have a deal on one of their new therapies, Slew PP 332, $25 off. I'm again listed as the promo code Tighten Up, but if you call them and mention
Right.
RxMuscle, Dave Palumbo, obviously they're going to hook you up this and all their other therapies. Dave, you want to give a little bit more of a primer on SLU PP332,
Yeah.
the benefits of it, and obviously available with Titan Medical.
Right. Yeah. Sloop. I love Sloop. I love the name Sloop. It's what they consider like it's exercise in a bottle. So what they say is it's supposed to simulate exercise in your body. So you're not working out, but it makes your body think you're working out. So you get all the benefits of working out without actually having to go to the gym. Now, obviously, if you just did this and you didn't actually train or do anything like that, you're going to get minimal benefits of it. But when you combine it with really working out and really eating properly, you're going to get all the extra benefits. You're going to lose body fat. You're going to feel more energized. You're going to feel your blood work theoretically will improve because you're forcing your body to work harder. And like I said, it's simulating exercise. There's also I think they're doing a $25 sale on consultations right now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, normally, you got to pay for the consultation at TitanMedicalCenter.com, and they're only doing it's $25. So like if you want to get any kind of treatments, now's the time to do it because the consultation fee is way higher normally. This is a special. I think it's just for this week. So go to our friends at TitanMedicalCenter.com. Tell them Dave Palumbo, RxMuscle sent you. You're going to get discount. Plus, you're going to get it's only $25 for a consultation with their doctors, and you can order any of these therapies. Sloop, glutathione. I use glutathione every single day, 200 milligrams of that stuff. Take it every day religiously. I love their BPC 157. It is, I don't know. My ankles feel so great when I take that stuff. I got to tell you, anytime I have any kind of joint problems, I take the BPC wherever, and I put it wherever my ache seems to be. And by the next day, it's gone. So those are my two favorite right now. But I'm telling you, if you talk to them over there and tell them what your problems are or what your issues are, they have great, if you have any erection issues, they have some great little Cupid's thing, and they have all kinds of little Viagra Cialis combinations over there, PT141. I'm telling you, they got an answer to all your problems. Check it out at TitanMedicalCenter.com.
So to further clarify, the $25 offer for SLU PP332 ends on April 18th. So that's Friday. So in a couple of days. So you have a couple of days to take advantage of this offer. But again, $25 medical consultations. If you call, we'll drop the number and the website below is 727-389-3220. But again, as always, you call them up or check or fill an online consultation. Mention Dave, mention RxMuscle, and they're going to hook you up on all the different variety of therapies. Let's continue with the questions. Our good friend, You Gotta Be a Freak, the real You Gotta Be a Freak. He actually did a proper remix of one of the Jumbo Palumbo songs. So yeah, we'll put that up as well. But his thoughts on 20 rep breathing squats, the effectiveness
of 20 rep squats.
The 20 rep breathing squats.
Breathing squats. I'm not really exactly sure what that encompasses. I don't do anything for 20 reps. Okay. I think when I was back in my old days, we would sometimes just rep out, if we wanted to just annihilate ourselves at the end of a workout, but very rarely did I do 20 rep sets. Because what I notice when I do any kind of beyond 10 or 12 reps is I start realizing that I'm cheating to get the weight up because you get tired. Because if you're lifting heavy weights, okay, by the time you get to 10 reps, you really can't lift the weight anymore. So if you're going to get more out, you're going to obviously cheat. Now, unless you have a training partner there who's helping you move the weights, I don't see any benefit of going with these higher rep sets. I know sometimes you want to challenge yourself and you want to push yourself a little harder to try to get past barriers. I'm okay with that, doing that occasionally. But on a regular basis, I'm not a big fan of super high reps like that.
This is about interactions, HGH, and various supplements, but this one's about chromium. So what is chromium's interaction with HGH, and how much daily chromium is optimal for bodybuilders? And I guess I'll ask that with or without HGH.
A lot of people don't understand. I'd say about 30 years ago, they figured out that chromium had something to do with insulin and the absorption of carbohydrates. And what they found was they termed chromium the glucose tolerance factor, meaning that if chromium is not present, okay, in the right amounts, insulin doesn't work properly. So the insulin receptor requires chromium as a cofactor in order to absorb glucose into the cell. So if you're chromium deficient, your body can't absorb glucose properly from the bloodstream. So what happens is your body thinks there's not enough insulin around. So it over-releases insulin to try to compensate. But that's not the problem. And remember, if you produce too much insulin, what happens? You can get fat, right? Because insulin's a fat storage hormone. So they found that by restoring chromium, levels to the body, people lost weight who were chromium deficient. That's the key. You had to be chromium deficient because now insulin worked better. Your body didn't release as much insulin, and less insulin, less fat storage. Now, people took that science, okay, and they said, oh, let's sell chromium as a fat burner. And that was a big, big thing in the 90s. And there were different forms, and everyone was promoting different forms. What we definitely came to the conclusion that chromium, that the chelated form of chromium, which we know trace metals and minerals bound to amino acids, which is called chelation, is a way better way to absorb these minerals, because in the stomach, which is where protein digestion starts, they get cleaved, those chelated minerals like chromium picolinate or chromium polymacadamate. There were different versions of it. And once that gets cleaved off, you absorb the mineral right there. If you take a salt form of the mineral, they have very poor absorption. That's why, in V Mineralize, our species nutrition vitamin mineral trace metal product, we only use chelated minerals and trace metals because we know that that's the best way to absorb these things. So they were trying to promote chromium as a fat burning agent. When it doesn't burn fat, it just restores normal chromium balance. If you're not chromium deficient, it's not going to do anything. Now, should you take some? Yeah, it's usually around 200 to 400 micrograms, not milligrams, micrograms per day. And if you take V Mineralize already, then you're covered. So you don't have to worry about it. Now, what they started with the whole thing with chromium and GH is we know that GH makes you insulin resistant. The reason why it makes you insulin resistant, meaning insulin is not working properly, is because GH is antagonistic to insulin. They work the opposite. GH wants to mobilize stuff. Insulin wants to store stuff. So they kind of counteract each other a little bit. Giving someone chromium is not going to fix the problem of GH's, insulin resistance, unless there's a chromium deficiency issue, which there probably isn't. So it's not going to fix what GH does. The only way to fix the GH and insulin resistance problem is to give your body more GH. Okay, to give your body more insulin, and that's why a lot of times guys that take GH and find that they have high fasting blood sugars, I've talked about this before, we recommend a long-acting insulin on board to kind of override the resistance that the GH causes. So remember, chromium, not a fat-burning agent, doesn't undo what GH does because GH is doing it directly itself. However, if you're chromium deficient, it will definitely help with insulin resistance and help you to lose some weight. If you take a good multivitamin that has a chelated chromium product in there, like the V Mineralize we make, you don't even have to think about it. Just dismiss it from your mind. But that's the science behind it.
Raw Muscle Glutes always ask good, insightful questions, and this one's going to take you back a ways. If Dave Palumbo of 2025 today was coaching Dave Palumbo of 1990, what would you tell 1990s Dave Palumbo to do differently than what you actually did?
Yeah. Well, it took me a while in the 90s to realize that, you need more fat. So I would educate myself about fatty acid intake, essential fats versus saturated fats, versus monounsaturated fats. That would definitely be that would be an educational thing that the 1990s Dave Palumbo would love. Also, I would educate myself about insulin because I kind of was like doing trial and error with insulin. No one knew what the hell was going on with it. And I just figured it out. And I figured out a solution, but I didn't even figure out the right solution because the right solution is a long-acting insulin. So I would definitely educate myself about that. I think those two things I would definitely benefit from. I think everything else I kind of had figured out pretty well. I don't know if I could have avoided any of my shoulder issues. I think those were just genetic and they were going to happen no matter what. Because if I would have lifted lighter to try to preserve my shoulders, I don't think I would have gotten the amount of mass I had on myself. I probably would have tried to figure out a way to eat more dense foods with less volume because I was consuming so much volume because because back then everyone was like carbs. I was eating probably 1,000 grams of carbs a day, in addition to 300 grams of fat and 800, 600 grams of protein. So I probably would have figured out a way to change the macros around and the food types so that I wasn't giving myself so much, because I think all that volume I was eating really stretched out my midsection. And that's what gave me a lot of distension. I also didn't take a fiber supplement until the second half of my career. So I definitely would have implemented fiber right from the beginning. So I think I could have definitely corrected a lot of issues that I had. Would the outcome have been any different? Who knows?
Now, this question, again, you can tell me straight up if this is more of a general guideline or if this is more of a homework assignment. It's from MDI Science. Gradually increasing dosage in a 12-week protocol, or just keeping the dose up from the beginning?
Back when I first started cycling, we used to do this pyramiding and gradually increasing the dosage, because Bill Phillips used to write these nice, beautiful little charts and cycles. And you start out with this many milligrams for this many weeks, then you go this and this, and it was like a whole big chart that you follow. And I kind of realized that with long-acting injectables, it takes a while for them to build up anyway. So you kind of, even though you're starting out at a certain dosage, you're really not absorbing it right away. So my new thinking is that the newest level of thinking probably for the last 20 years is that you just find the effective dose you're going to use and take it. And that's it. Now, if you're a beginner, I'm not going to start you on 1,000 milligrams of testosterone a week, because you don't need it. I'm going to give you lower dosage, but I'm going to keep you on lower dosages for the entire cycle. So I try to find an effective dosage that I think is going to work well. If I'm doing a Winstrol and Anavar cycle, we might start at 30 milligrams of Winstrol and 25 milligrams of Winstrol, 30 milligrams of Anavar per day, and do 8-10 weeks, for a beginner cycle. Now, if you're a woman, I'm not going to start you at 30 milligrams of Anavar. I might start you at 10 milligrams of Anavar because you've never done anything, and that's it. But, after doing, Anavar cycles for 2 years, we might go, when we do Anavar as a woman, I might go right to 30 milligrams because that seems to be what works well for you. And we've already done the lower dosages. So within a certain cycle, the dosages are standard, or they're consistent. However, comparing years to years, there might be a pyramiding up of dosage, only because as you are more advanced, you're going to need more up to the effective dose. So we don't always start at the most effective dose. I don't put people on 1,000 milligrams of testosterone a week when they just start doing cycles. I might start them on 400 milligrams a week. And so within the cycle, though, there is consistency.
Question about liver toxicity when it comes to orals. What actually makes an oral steroid liver toxic? I know it's something to do with the 17-alpha alkylation in the first pass through the liver, but how exactly is that liver toxic?
Yeah. The problem with oral anabolics, that's why I don't like them, is that they're not very bioavailable, meaning that the body deactivates them very quickly. Okay. So let's take an oral like Primobolan acetate. So Primobolan acetate is not 17-alpha alkylated. It lasts 2 to 3 hours in the body. It's not toxic because the liver doesn't have to work very hard to break it down. It's actually a really good steroid. It just, you have to take it throughout the day because the levels don't stay high. So obviously steroids, anabolic steroids were developed for, people with anemia and different problems, wasting disease. They don't want to take pills all day long. So they had to figure out a way to make this pill last the whole day. So what they found was that if they alkylated it, and 17-alpha alkylation just means that a certain group on the steroidal molecule, they put this alkyl group, and it's like a carbon and some hydrogen atoms. And what it does is at that group is it prevents the liver from breaking it down too easily. So it makes the drug last longer. The problem is that the liver has to work harder because they purposely put it there so the liver couldn't break it down. So the liver has to work hard to get rid of that, right? To break it down. So it becomes a little liver stressful, that drug, but it makes the drug last longer. And it accomplishes what they're trying to do. Now, as a bodybuilder, I always think of it in this terms. Why would we want to take a drug that makes our liver work harder when we can take a comparable injectable drug that has very little toxicity on the liver at all, and we're getting better benefits out of it? So that's why I never understood why people took Anadrol or Dianabol, because there's no reason to put that toxicity. You could take Deca and testosterone and Masteron and Trenbolone that are injectables, and they have a lot less toxicity, and they don't bother your digestion at all. So that's why I kind of became foo-fooey on the orals. Now, Anavar, Winstrol, Primo orals, those are okay because they're really not that strong. So they're not doing a lot of damage to the liver. They're not really liver toxic. And I mean, they still are alpha. The Primo, the Winchell and the Anabar are still, well, Winchell really not, but yeah, I guess Winchell would be. They're still out 17 alpha alkylated, but they have very minor toxicity. And for women, orals are better because they're not in your system all day long. So they provide less side effects. So mild orals I'm okay with. Strong orals like T-ball, D-ball, Anadrol, halotestin, methyl testosterone, really not anything that you need to use.
Question about macadamia nut oil. We do get a lot of questions about macadamia nut oil in terms of incorporating in just cooking pre-contest, off-season.
Right.
Should, I don't know if this is a Google Translate, is it more important? I guess the gist of it is more important to calculate the calories or the fats for my cut while using macadamia nut oil. I currently find myself using it on everything for cooking.
Yeah. It's not the calories. You always want to watch grams. So it's how many grams of fat. Like a tablespoon of macadamia nut oil is 15 grams of fat. Now, macadamia nut oil, I mean, it tastes like butter. I mean, it's amazing. It's got more monounsaturated fats than olive oil, extra virgin olive oil. It's got a perfect balance of 1-to-1 ratio of omega-6 to omega-3. So it's a balanced oil. And that's why it doesn't oxidize when it's exposed to light or oxygen, whereas olive oil does that. It's really the greatest all-purpose. So you can put it on your skin. People put it in their hair. We sell a lot of. Matter of fact, we just ordered another load from South Africa. I ordered 10,000 bottles at a time. We sell a lot of macadamia nut oil. It's the greatest oil. My kids love it. My kids now actually ask for macadamia nut oil on their like toast or toasted bagels or on their food. Matter of fact, I have even on their rice because I used to want only butter. Now they only want mac oil. They like it better. I just kind of been giving it to them since they've been kids, and they're asking for it. I put some butter on my daughter, who's a butter fiend, and she's like, no, I want mac oil. Now, granted, she almost has the rice swimming in the oil, but that's healthy for her. I'd much rather have her do that. It's going to be good for her hair. It's good for your heart. It provides, it stimulates metabolic rate. It's really, really good for you, but you cannot indiscriminately use it if you're dieting, thinking that, it's free calories. You can't do that. That's why you got to be careful with cooking with it. Don't use excessive amounts because it will add a lot of fat calories to your meals. Now, off season, I pour the stuff all over my food, and I encourage you to do it too. Pre-contest, however, you can't just say, it's free. It tastes so good when I cook everything in mac oil. Of course it does, because it's adding fat to the meal, and it gives it a nice buttery taste. But you have to always account for how many grams of fat you're adding to the food.
Boldenone front loading. So I guess that's basically the gist of the question.
Yeah.
I guess if you want to talk about your general thoughts and worth it.
Yeah, well, I mean, the term front loading usually implies that you're taking a fast-acting drug that's going to start working real quickly. Like a lot of people will front load Dianabol, right? Because they think, well, you know what? I'm taking long-acting injectables. If I want to take a little Dianabol for the first 4 weeks, at least that's working quickly because it's an oral, right? EQ is a very equipoise Boldenone. It's a very long-acting drug, so it takes a long time to get into your system and start working. So I don't really understand, why you would front load that. Now, I just usually start guys off with testosterone and EQ. It takes 2-3 weeks, and then they start feeling it, and that's fine. And people always think, well, they're getting cheated out of that 2 weeks that it takes to kick in. But you're really not, because you're getting it on the back end. When you stop the drug, it's still going to work for 2 to 3 weeks after you stop it. So you don't lose anything. You get it on the back end. And once again, I mean, if you're starting a cycle, do you really need to speed things up? I mean, any more than who cares? Let the stuff kick in gradually. So at least you don't get this huge surge of going from nothing to something. Because a lot of times people get the steroid flu from that. They get like flu-like symptoms. They get, fevers. They get a little achy. You're better off taking the long-acting injectables and let them take their time building up in your system, and you're going to get a better response from that. If you start banging down some fast-acting testpropionate or orals right off the bat, a lot of times you just feel like crap. So I'm not a big advocate of that.
Question about, born out of the documentary, but it is a food question right up your alley. In your documentary, you make a plate full of ground beef patties. How do you include those in your daily meals? Looking for something new to do other than ground beef with rice.
Yeah, what I do is, I'll make. I go through stages. let me tell you, because I went through when I was filming that, I was in this like, lean beef stage where I was doing a lot of beef, and I was doing, and you see how I make it. I take the beef patties. I try to get 96% lean. Walmart supermarket sells that. And then what I'll do is a lot of times I'll mix it with like a sugar-free, it's not really sugar-free, no sugar added like sauce that they sell. You can even just use stewed tomatoes if you want, but I like a sauce because it has a little flavor to it. And I mix it all and I throw it in the pan, and I actually stew the burgers in the sauce in the pan and with a little macadamia nut oil to keep it lubricated. And the stuff tastes delicious. When the burgers are done, it absorbs all that sauce into it, and it tastes real good. It's a really nice treat off season, and what I'll do is I'll eat, whatever. Let's say now I'm eating like 35 grams of protein worth. I'll eat 2 small burgers, and I'll make some rice with it, or I'll make some potatoes with it, or whatever I decide I'm eating. If I'm eating lower carb, I might slice up some avocados and have that with a salad and some vegetables. Depends whatever I'm eating. I don't know I go through different stages where I'm into different things, but that's in that movie. That's what I was doing. By the way, I think, fingers crossed, a lot of people have been asking for part 2 of the documentary we did. They want to know more about like how I got to where I am. And it looks like Alexi and I are going to be doing a part 2. And I think, I don't know if it's a little premature, but I'm going to say it anyway, because I think we've solidified it. We're going to start the filming in Alabama on June 21st at that Alabama show that the entire Whack Pack will be at. John Romano, Greg Valentino, Jimmy the Bull, John Romano, myself, and I forget who else is going to be there. Mr. G, and anyone else who's going to come. All the Whack. So we're going to film there. She's going to do interviews there, and so if you come to that show in Alabama, in Montgomery, on June 21st during that weekend there, you have a very good chance of making it into the Jumbo Palumbo Part 2 documentary, which is, I think we're going to try to market to like Netflix or something like that. So we'll see. It's going to be a very long project, but we're going to start the filming there in June. So this is a good opportunity. If you guys want to come hang out with us, have fun that weekend. I'm going to be doing a hardcore seminar there too. I told Michelle I'm going to do it. It's going to be it's not going to be like the guru course, but it's going to be 2 hours of intense, diet, nutrition, PED advice plus Q&A. So you guys are going to love it. There's a lot being given away that weekend. If you can't make it to Alabama, I'll be at Dean Caputo's show at the end of May, and I'll be doing a hardcore seminar there. But we won't be filming there for the documentary, of course.
What was I going to say? Look, I was there last year at the Alabama show. There were so many NPC competitors. Obviously, there's a huge lineup of pro competitors as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the biggest thing is for those that have, are on the fence about competing at the show, if you're going to go and you're going to get a free seminar out of it as well worth it to go compete at this show. You're going to get the free seminar. It's going to be on the Friday night before the actual competition. So if you haven't already done so, it's a Body B1. I think that's the actual contest name, whatever. So Google it. You'll go right to the registration information. So there'll be a ton of benefits. Obviously, you get the seminar, and then you get a shot to be in Dave's documentary as well.
And you can have a beer with Jimmy the Bull.
There you go as well. Just don't be tipsy walking around downtown Montgomery, Alabama.
That's right.
And then part 2, theoretically, as you and I were discussing, part 2 theoretically could be at the Olympia in October, correct?
Yeah, I think so. I think we're going to have to do 3 filmings. One is going to be the start in Alabama. One will be at the Olympia, and then I think the third video thing is going to be in New York, because I definitely I got to go back to where my roots, my old house. I got to go to Steve Weinberger's gym, obviously, because that's where all the magic happened with where I became a bodybuilder. I want to get Steve on film too, and there's a lot of like guys I grew up with that knew me. Look, I have friends, and you guys probably know this. I'm not. I have a terrible memory for details. I remember incidents, but I don't remember all the details. I have friends that can write transcripts of what went on with me, with them when we were hanging out back in those days. Those are the guys you want on film, because they'll tell stories that I never even remember, about me and stuff that we did. And so I think that it's important to get that on film if we're going to have an accurate, depiction of how I got from point A to point B. Plus, I got to get some of my friends that I grew up with, like that I went to kindergarten with, and it's because I want to hear their version of of what I was like as well. So we have a lot of work to do on this thing. I don't think it's not going to happen. Like we filmed the other documentary in 10 days. This is going to be a long-term project, but I think when it comes out, it's going to be really good.
We'll take one more question. This one's about, I mean, again, we've had a few different variations of PED related questions. If there was, there was one about, I'm just trying to find it. There was one about, I hate when this happens. I literally had it in front of me. It was about PED that causes hair loss. All right. Is it true that some anabolics accelerate hair loss more than others? If you would have, I guess, a list of steroids that to cause hair loss in advance.
I hate doing this because everyone thinks that, they know what steroid causes hair loss in them. And you know what the truth is? They might be right. I think certain steroids cause hair loss in certain people and on others they don't. Like I never noticed, and all the drugs I took over the years, I never noticed that one particular drug caused me to lose hair. Matter of fact, I've never found hair falling out of my head. I just thinned gradually. Like my hair loss just started. One day I realized, hey, my hair's a lot thinner than it was before. And usually they say that you don't realize you're losing your hair until you've lost 50% of it already. Whereas I know guys that actually hair falls out in clumps, so they find it in the drain. I've never, ever experienced that. It was a very gradual process for me. And I took everything. So, now when I started trying to combat the hair loss and I started taking finasteride, I kind of stopped the loss of it. It really slowed down quite a bit. So I really believe a lot of the hair loss is due to high DHT levels in the body. So if you are prone to hair loss, you might want to get on something like finasteride. Well, I would start with Testalize first, 3 pills twice a day. If that works, then you're good. Because once you start taking finasteride, you have to keep taking it. Because if you don't keep taking it, you'll lose the hair that you grew back or that you actually prevented yourself from losing. So a lot of guys don't want to go that route because they don't want to take it the rest of their life. So the Testalize product is a better option. And obviously any drug that converts to DHT, testosterone, being anadrol, dianabol, those are all going to be drugs that are going to cause a lot of hair, that will cause hair loss in people that are prone to it. But then again, you look at some of these bodybuilders, Dorian never lost a hair on his head. Gunther never lost a hair on his head. There are a lot of guys out there with great heads of hair. Jay, really never lost any hair. So some guys just don't lose hair, and some guys do. And I know guys that my friend Doug Wentz lost his hair, but you know what? His brother who never took a steroid, had less hair than he did. So it's genetic a lot of times. There's nothing you can do about it.
And that's going to do for this episode of Ask Dave. Again, if you haven't already done so, subscribe below, hit the notification bell. Dave and I were just talking about this before we went on air. We are less than a month out from the Pittsburgh Pro, the highly anticipated Pittsburgh Pro. So we're just, finalizing our arrangements, make sure that we get everything set for our media credentials and everything else that we need to do to be there to provide you with wall-to-wall coverage. And then the following week is going to be the New York Pro. So now we're in the thick of it. Obviously, we have coverage from this past weekend's FIBO Championship. We were on site as well. Shout out Leo Meyerhofer. Shout out James Hollingshead for helping us out with the recaps and everything. And then Dave and Chris discussing everything, the whole show and the permutations. Because now the unique thing about this upcoming season, or the season that we're already in, is that it's going to be an epic game of musical chairs. You're going to have some big names and not a lot of shows, and somebody's going to get left standing. So there's going to be a lot to look forward to over the next few weeks. Subscribe below, hit the notification bell so you're not going to miss any of our shows, any of our segments, contest, non-contest related, everything that we're going to have on this channel. Again, all new episode of the After Hours podcast, all new episodes of Heavy Muscle Radio, and then, of course, our content from this past weekend's FIBO Championship. If you like what you're watching, hit the like button below, comment below. As always, we appreciate all of your support. For Dave Palumbo, I'm Sadiq Faruqi. We'll see you next time.